Great to have you with us once again. And we do welcome a good Coptic friend, a dear friend. And it's amazing that Alan really stepped in. I'm going to go into his formal introduction in a minute, but I was just thinking of the multitude of things he's provided the organization probably about 8 years ago now, maybe give or take a few. He came in and redesigned the Coptic Fellowship website. That was a good starter in 2007 when the birth of the center in West Michigan was opened. But he redesigned it, and now he's taken that a step further. It's been about a year now where it has evolved, it has changed, and it's ascended, and it's continuing to grow to touch the lives of others, including yourselves, on a weekly basis. So take a look at it. It's expanding ever so slowly but surely, and thanks to Alan's work, his efforts, his vision, he's helping our organization grow one step at a time and one person at a time. In addition to that, I myself did a lot of the audio recording in the earlier years of the center in our first decade, but Alan has really set the tone to take it a step further and took it much further than I have with the videos that he edits on a weekly basis, which there's countless hours of voluntary, loving work that he's done that we are very thankful for, that has taken things a step further to visually see us, to hold the legacy of decades to come that will take place, that people will tune into the Coptic Fellowship and look at the archives. He's recorded them for the directors, like John right now, and the board of director members that speak, some of the earlier presenters that are guests. It's all out there currently in the YouTube page of the Coptic Fellowship. So it's a labor of love, and we're so thankful for that, and Linda that stepped in. Alan does continue to develop new and better ways to manifest your desires reliably and consistently in his presentations, and tonight will be no exception. Alan shares his newest and most advanced methods of manifesting, including an easy way to shift your faith, and a method of manifesting that takes less than 10 seconds, which you might touch on a little bit tonight. He's a photographer, author, speaker, coach, video editor, as I mentioned, marketing consultant. His talents and skills are abundant. He has written a couple books. He has meditation CDs available that you can download. And Choose to Believe is one of his books, A Practical Guide to Living Your Dreams. It's one of the books that he has gifted a lot of the participants that have stopped by the center to hear him speak in recent years, and he's given so lovingly. PowerKeysPublishing.com is one of his websites, and he's offering a lot more than just that little snippet of introduction, the formal part of his introduction tonight. Opening to the Divine Flow is his topic that he will share on, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes as we strive to go with the flow more these days, even though it's very difficult in different facets of all of our lives during these times.
Thank you, Tara. That was absolutely wonderful. And I think you picked a really good lesson to focus on there, because it does kind of explain why we have that access that I'm going to be talking about to divine guidance on all things. Because what Hamid Bey is talking about there is that God is at the center of all things, and the energy and power that is God radiates out into the world, into all of us and everything that we see. Because I think the quote in there was, God created matter and then became matter. And so we were created by God, and then God became us. So that is one of the reasons why we are all divine beings. We are all an aspect of God living human lives. And so that is the foundation that everything that I'm going to talk about is based upon. So I think that was a really good lesson to pull from, and I thank you for doing that. As most of you know, I tend to talk about how to manifest the things that you want into life, how to turn the visions in your mind into physical reality. And the process that I have been talking about lately is a process that can be described as 3 simple steps. Relax, imagine the end result in as much detail as you can, and then trust it to happen. And if you really boil manifesting down to the basics, that's really what it is. The relax part is opening yourself up to that divine presence that is within you, making that divine connection so that the energy and power that is God can flow through you. And as that energy and power flows through you, it picks up the ideas and the feelings that you have when you're imagining your desired objective. And then that energy and power goes out into the world to create those things for you. When we're not consciously focusing on the things that we would like to create, and we're looking at the world around us, and then imagining the things that the world is suggesting to us, then those are the ideas and feelings that are programming, is one way to say programming or conditioning that divine power that's always flowing through us to create more of what we're seeing in the world around us. So we always have a choice to either recreate what we're seeing in the world around us, or to ignore what's in the world around us, focus our mind on something better, and then create that. And so that is my foundation of what I tend to talk about. But once you have relaxed, sorry about that. Once you have relaxed, made that conscious connection with the divine, and then focused on creating and manifesting what you would like to have happen in the world, the question eventually comes up, what do I do now? Where do I go from here? And it is true that you can send out these thoughts, these prayers into the universe, and God will direct you wherever you need to be so that your desire can manifest. And most of us tend to live this way. I know I did for a lot of years, that I would pray for something and then I would just let circumstances guide me to where I needed to be. And eventually I figured out it's like being a ball in a pinball machine. It's like you go off in your own little direction. If God says that's not going to get you to where you want to be, there comes the bumper and you get whacked back into play. And you're going around, you're bouncing off of everything in the world. And then if you're going off in another direction that's not where you're supposed to be, whack again back into play until you eventually end up where you're supposed to end up. And that's certainly one way to experience the manifestations. That's certainly one way to get to where you eventually want to get to. But there is a better way. We can consciously tune in to the spirit of the divine that is within us and ask for directions. Now, most guys have a problem with asking for directions, and the GPS system has been a godsend for most of us because we can program in the address that we want to get to and then drive along, and it'll say, okay, continue on for 2.5 miles, turn right. Continue on for 4 blocks, turn left, continue on for 1/2 mile, and your destination is on the right. It's like, okay, the GPS is the most wonderful invention, one of the main reasons why I got a smartphone, because I love that thing. It helps me get to where I need to be without taking any wrong turns, without getting into any back alleys that I shouldn't be in, and just makes life that much easier. And when we are trying to manifest something into our lives, seeking divine guidance is the same thing. It helps us program in the direction, the destination that we want to go to, and listen for those promptings. Where do I need to go from here? Which direction do I need to go? How should I handle this situation? And if we're open to it, if we're listening for it, if we're connected to the divine in a way that allows that information to come in clearly and cleanly, we can eliminate so many problems in our lives just simply by listening to that guidance. The other example that I wanted to bring up with this, because a lot of people feel like, okay, yeah, God will direct me, I'll eventually get to where I need to be. And there's also this other thing about you can learn anything on your own. You can go through the process of trial and error and figure anything out. In fact, the information that I'm sharing with you, I found most of it by trial and error. But I also, as you can see, tons of books. I learned from other people as well. And it's a lot easier to avoid those mistakes when you're learning from someone else who knows the answers. And if there's any one being in the universe that knows the answers, it's God. God knows everything. God has all the answers. And I don't need these books if I can tap into that divine guidance and listen to the voice of God. I can get any information that I want. The problem is me. I am not always as clear as I need to be to get those answers. God is always there. That voice of divine guidance is always correct. It's always right. If I tap into that divine guidance and make a mistake, the mistake is mine. It's not the information that I received. I may have heard it wrong. I may have interpreted it wrong. But the information that comes from the divine is always right. So that's where we're starting. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. So as wonderful as various manifesting processes are, the harmonic prayer process that I talk about over and over again, relax, imagine, trust, as wonderful as that process is, it can be made 20 times better if we add one extra thing to the end, which is listen for divine guidance. Now, the other thing that I tend to be known for with my presentations is a focus on here's how to do it. And so the how to do part of getting divine guidance is actually pretty simple. But that's not the only issue that we face when we're trying to get that divine guidance and get it clearly enough so that we can follow it without any issues whatsoever. Once we figure out how to do it, which I'll show and which I'll explain in just a moment, there's also the idea of, is our mind clear enough to be able to hear what many call the still small voice within? Because that divine guidance is not the loud trumpet that we would like it to be. Sometimes it's that small little piccolo in the back of the orchestra. So we have to have a clear mind in order to receive that information. And then once we know how to make contact with the divine, know how to ask for divine guidance, and then we have a clear mind to receive the divine guidance, there's also another issue that we're going to have to overcome, and that is to be willing to accept that guidance. It's kind of like that GPS. That GPS can be telling you turn right, turn right, turn right, turn right. But if you never turn right, you're never going to get to where you want to be. And why have a GPS if you're not going to listen to it? And this is where Hamid Bey's material also comes into play. And my last presentation, it's all about willpower. It's all about being willing to step out of your comfort zone and do what needs to be done because it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. Because sometimes there have been times when I have asked for guidance and I've been shown a pathway, and I look at that pathway and say, but I don't like that pathway. Is there another way? And that's when it just kind of, it's like you've been given the answer. It's your choice whether you follow it or not. So I've had to learn to step out of my comfort zone from time to time in order to follow that guidance to make things happen the way I wanted them to happen. So I'm not perfect with it. There's still a number of things that I would be better off if I did things a different way. I'm working on it. So those are really the three factors that we need to put into place so that we can follow divine guidance and have the divine help us to manifest whatever it is that we would like to experience in life. The how to do part. the easiest process for getting divine guidance is the same process that I've been talking about with manifesting. The first step is to relax, to go within yourself, to enter into an alpha or theta state of mind, to get into a state of like daydreaming. Relax, 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 relax. Go within, go within, go within. Because the further you go within yourself, the closer you are to the divine mind. It's like conscious mind, subconscious mind, divine mind. The divine is at the foundation of everything, kind of like that ball of energy that radiates outward. The divine is at the inside of that circle. We're on the outside of that circle. And so in order to reach the divine, we have to go within. We have to go down deep into ourselves, into that universal essence to get close to the divine. So the more we can relax, the easier it is to get divine guidance. The next step in this process is to imagine the outcome we would like, which can be the outcome of, I have the answer. I know what to do. The feeling of knowing what to do, the feeling of knowing the answer is all we need. Because if we have a question, it's like, well, which is better for me? Or which is the right way to go? Or how should I approach this? Or how do I bring this into my life? Whatever the question is, if all we can do is just get to that feeling of, I have the answer, I know what to do, that's how we can manifest the divine guidance into our experience. And then the last step, which is the same in manifesting as it is here, is to trust that what you're asking for will be there. It may be here right now. In fact, there are a lot of times I go within, I ask a question, and the answer is there before I'm finished asking the question. There have been times when I'm scheduled to do a presentation and I'm wondering, okay, how should I structure this presentation? How should I start it? And then I go with it, and before I'm even down below, it's like the answer is right there. So sometimes the answer is immediate. But then sometimes you go down, you ask the question, and you're waiting for an answer, you're waiting for an answer, you're waiting for an answer, and for some reason or another, the answer is not there right at that moment. So you trust that it will be there when it needs to be there. And so you come back out, you start doing your normal thing, and then the divine will guide you through your intuition, through your gut instinct, through your gut impulses, is the word that I really wanted to use there, through the feelings that you have. One of the examples that I've talked about a number of times is when I felt like I was ready to manifest the one relationship that would last the rest of my life. And I went through my manifesting process. I relaxed. I imagined the relationship that I wanted to have, and I went through that manifesting process. And back then I wasn't looking for divine guidance, so that was not actually part of my process. But the story goes that one Wednesday afternoon I was meditating, which again, I was going within, but this time I wasn't going in to try to manifest anything. I was just going in to be there, to clear my mind, to resonate in greater harmony with the divine. And within that meditative state, I got this idea. I got this feeling. It's like, okay, it's been a while since I've gone to a church with a meditation group. I kind of feel like doing that. And that was the feeling, that was the divine guidance that came in that eventually led me to where I needed to be to meet Linda. And so the divine guidance, it can be immediate, it can come later, but it will eventually come as long as you trust that it will be there. Now, that's the how to do part. The second part that we need to take care of is making sure that our mind is in the right space, is conditioned so that we can receive that guidance. And as I was just saying, when I received the divine guidance that led to the relationship I now have with Linda, I was in meditation. And meditation is one of those practices that the Coptics talk about over and over and over and over again, because it is one of those things that helps put you into divine harmony with the divine. And it also helps clear out all of the noise that we collect through our normal physical lives. In fact, when I first wrote about this idea of opening to divine flow for my email course earlier this year, I had talked about an example of how I was looking for something through the house. I knew it had to be somewhere, but I couldn't find where it was. And eventually I decided, what am I doing? I need to just go within and get the divine guidance and follow that instruction to find this thing. So I relaxed, I went within, I asked the question, and nothing. And eventually I decided, okay, that's not working. I'm not getting the answer directly. Let me try this a different way. And so I worked on manifesting the finding of the object that I was looking for. It was a memory card. And eventually, within a half an hour of doing that manifesting process, I did find it. But it wasn't what I wanted to do, because it wasn't the example that I wanted to be able to share with my students. I wanted to be able to talk about how I went within, I asked the question, and immediately got the answer. Well, later that day, I figured out why I didn't get the answer the way I wanted to. And that's because this was, let's see, what was it? April or May, I think it was. For the month or two before that point, that was in the early days of our stay-at-home orders and just staying at home. I had spent so much time watching YouTube videos and binging on Netflix that my mind was so full of information and stimulus that I was not in a position where I could open up and hear the voice of the guidance. The next time I felt a need to go within to get information on something in a similar line, and I felt that discord, that chaos that was going on inside my mind, I decided, okay, I'm going to set aside a period of time, and in this case it was 3 hours. I sat down on the couch for a period of time and just focused on nothing. It's like I need to go on a media fast. I need to purge my mind of all of this information and stimulus. So I just sat down, cleared my mind, and just sat there for a period of time. It was about 3 to 4 hours, somewhere in that range. And then after that was done, and now I remember what it was that I was actually doing. I had a lesson to write for that email course, and it was due out the next day, and I needed it to be good. And so I spent that 3 or 4 hours to just fast my mind, clear my mind, so that I can go upstairs, get to my desk, and just write and be clear on what I was writing, and it worked out perfectly. I got upstairs, I sat down on the computer, and that lesson just flowed right out. I was typing away, and within an hour it was done. And so that time it worked. And so the how to do, relax, go within, manifest the answer, being open to it, a lot of it has to do with meditation. A lot of it has to do with just clearing your mind and being open to whatever comes in. And that being open to whatever comes in also relates to the third point that I was going to talk about, which is to be accepting of any answer the divine gives you. If you are asking for, how do I fix this relationship? We have an issue in this relationship, and the divine says what you need to do is go over and slap the person. Now, consciously, humanly, I would say, now that's not right. I don't want to do that. But if the divine is telling you to do something, you have to be willing to do it, even if it doesn't fit with your idea of what is the right thing to do. Now, I can say that I've never been asked to do that, So luckily that hasn't happened. But I do know that there are times when I'm told to do something and it doesn't quite match up with what I think should be done. And the only thing I can really say at this point is that most of us have this concept of what God is. Most of us have a concept of God is all love. God is pure acceptance. God is all of these positive things and only the positive things. And yet, God is everything. God is the positive and the negative. God created this universe that we live in. God created the up and the down, the front and the back, the in and the out. God created white and black. God created good and bad, love and hate. Everything was created by God, and God is neutral on all of it. It's all good. That's what I get out of the Genesis story in the Bible. God created the heavens and the earth, and being outside of time, God also created eternity from beginning to end. God created everything, looked at it and said, this is good. Everything, according to God, is good. I also interpret the original sin talked about in the Bible, eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, there's a lot of different elements in that statement. Eating the fruit of, now a lot of times we think of an actual, like an apple or some other piece of fruit, but that's not what they're talking about. Eating the fruit of something just means to partake of, which can be partake of an idea. And so that's how I interpret that. The knowledge of, here again, a lot of people kind of shorten and say the tree of knowledge, and if that was the original sin, then learning anything would be a sin. Learning how to cook would be a sin because that's obtaining knowledge. That's not what the Bible says. It's not the knowledge. It's the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of could also be called the concept of. And so I'm going way too far into this topic. I don't want to go this far, but just to finish it out, I believe that the original sin was the idea that some things are good and some things are evil. According to God, it's all good. And so over the weekend when we were driving down to my mom's house to give her a visit and driving back, Linda and I were reading some Muhammad-based material, and lesson 3 in the home study course is all about balance. And as we know, karma is that mechanism through which everything is balanced out. If we do something bad to somebody else, that bad thing is eventually going to work its way back to us in some way. Now, if we look at the mechanism of that, and here again, you could look at it as a mechanical thing, or you can look at it as a personal kind of thing. But if we look at how does God implement that idea of karma? So if I hurt somebody, then God's going to hurt me. Well, if God was pure love and love was always being nice to someone, then God could not hurt me. And so karma could not work. And because karma does work, that also suggests that God is completely neutral on all of these things. So that's a long way of trying to get into this idea that I want to bring out, that when we ask for divine guidance, sometimes God is going to suggest to us a pathway that we may not be comfortable with. One of the things that we've also talked about through this last 4 years when Trump got elected to president, and so many people were saying, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. And also this year with the pandemic, so many people saying this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't know where it's leading. We don't know that all of this may have been put into place to till the ground so that new seed can be planted. Maybe there were so many weeds in our society that needed to be uprooted and thrown out so that new seed could be planted, so that something new could be created. I don't have that information. The divine God has that information. Maybe all of this has a good purpose. And so that is the thing that I really want to point out, that when we are seeking divine guidance and we are given information that seems to be a little bit off, maybe it's just one step in a chain of events that needs to happen for us to eventually get to that end point that we want to be at. So being open to everything is a good place to be when we want to receive divine guidance, because if we're dead set on it has to be this way, then we could be getting this information and it not resonate with us because we're so focused on things have to be a particular way. When we're open to everything, it's a lot easier for the divine to connect with us, for us to connect with the divine, whichever way you want to look at it, and for that information to come through. So when we have a question, relax, go within, imagine that you have the answer you're looking for, you have the end results you would like to create, and be open to whatever the divine gives you. Because when you are in that state, when you are that well balanced, then the divine can guide you more perfectly so that you can end up where you want to be with the least amount of wrong turns, back alleys, or anything else that you would rather avoid. So that is pretty much all that I have to say. One thing I will mention is that when you are first working with seeking divine guidance, there is a danger that when you go within and you're asking a question, before you truly learn how to connect with the divine to get that divine information, there is a chance that your imagination could pretend to be the divine and give you false information that appears to be correct. And what I have found in my experience, there is a difference in how that feels. There's a difference in how this voice of fantasy feels as opposed to the voice of God. And in my case, it's not a voice at all. It's just a feeling. It's just information that comes in. But there's like a vibrational difference between the two. And when I am truly connected, when I am getting good information, which I know because it works out, when I am getting good information, I have discovered through time and experience that I can recognize that good information because I have a feeling of calm, connectedness. I feel calm, I feel relaxed, and I feel connected to everything in the universe. And there's a feeling of joy that comes along with that. And when I feel those three things, that relax, calm, connectedness, and joy, I know that the information I'm getting is coming from the divine. It's something that you have to practice with. You have to work through to get the experience so that you know how to identify it for yourself. You can go within, you can ask for information, you can ask questions on anything. You can say, who is the next person that's going to call me on my phone? Who is the next face that I'm going to see today? And if the information you get from that question turns out to be correct, then you know that I was connected. If that information is not correct, you know that you still need to work on making that connection. And so this is a process of learning. It's a process of practicing until you get it right. And then when you know that you can get those little details correct, then you can trust that when you ask the big questions, the answers will also be correct. And you will be guided by God himself. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Wonderful, powerful topic of going with the flow and the divine flow. And I like the GPS analogy too. So many times you need to steer the wheel or have somebody else steer us in the right direction, and find that joy, that energy that gets you to that divine place when you go within. So that's
I don't know. Do you know him?
Open time of our gathering to open up any questions you have for Alan of the wonderful wisdom and lessons that he shared with us tonight.
It's GPS, God's personal support system.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
GPS.
God's personal system.
So,
Don't you think it's interesting that they made the GPS a woman's voice?
that's really funny.
I like how the Peace Pole people, the worldpeace.org people, they use God itself.
Mm-hmm.
They take the identification with the gender out. I like that.
I like that.
I like it.
Yep.
Of course, it does seem silly for God to have a gender, since God's not going to reproduce, right?
I just want to say that I think when you make a practice of going within, that sometimes you don't have to do it specifically to get an answer. And my example would be, and it doesn't always happen this way, but my example would be when I broke my ankle. And I had lived in a third-story walk-up, and I was on a knee stroller. I had 8 weeks of non-weight bearing. So, the steps and all of this stuff, and the laundry was down the basement, and things would come up. I lived by myself. One of them was that I've had a history of back issues, and I had the thought, geez, if my back goes out on me, I'm really screwed. And then all of this stuff came in to me. I had a therapy protocol, and I was able to modify it, and I never had back issues. But what happened frequently is something would come up, and I'd go, how on earth are you going to do that? And then I would just go, well, you'll figure it out. You always do. And as soon as I did that, it's like the ideas would come in and they would work. So I think it has that it's not always necessary to go within and get the answers if you've been learning how to connect.
Exactly. Once you get enough practice, that connectedness feeling stays with you longer and longer and longer, to the point where if you practice it enough, then it is a permanent connection that is always open, and you can always get those answers even in the middle of doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
There's another example I was thinking about when you went within to find the item you were looking for. Several times John and I'll misplace something, and we tear the house up and down. We can't figure out where it is. So we say, St. Anthony, will you help us, please? And within a few minutes, we find the item.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've given our power to St. Anthony, right?
Well, you could look at it a couple different ways. You can say that that's just your trigger symbol to activate the power that is within you. So, I mean, you could look at it a couple different ways, but as long as it works, that's all that matters.
Yeah. I like the idea of getting it from the divine rather than St. Anthony, but
I think they desaintized him anyway, the Catholic Church. So
what'd you say, Jan?
I don't think he's considered a saint anymore in the Catholic Church.
Oh,
What did he do wrong?
I have no clue, but my mother let me know that.
My granddaughter goes to school at St. Anthony's.
maybe he's horning in too much on God's work, huh?
Yeah. I think he's just doing it all along. So.
You know, I have to say, Alan, for all the conversations we've had, I had sort of this new aha thing about karma when you were talking. And the whole idea is we say, oh, you do something good will come back to you. You do something bad will come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, honey.
I locked her out of my office, so she had to go to you to get on camera.
So anyway,
later.
The thing that you brought up about God being neutral and it's all good simply would also negate the good and bad thing with karma. It's just that when you do something, the reflection of it comes back to you.
Yep.
It isn't any, doesn't have a good or a bad. It's neutral, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And our resistance to whatever it is that happens is what would cause it to call it bad or whatever, because it doesn't fit with what you want.
I hadn't thought of that before.
Karma is
Right.
not a judgment, it's a reflection.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Good way to look at it.
That's
It's
right.
just like if you look in the mirror and one day your hair is a mess and it looks terrible and you go, oh, that's terrible. And then the next day you got all dolled up and you think, oh, well, that looks good. Well, the mirror isn't judging. It's just reflecting what it sees. I guess that was kind of an interesting, it sort of resonated with me different than the way I had thought of it before. So.
I hear a Coptic talk coming out of you here, Linda.
Well, I'm wondering if the idea is, I'm thinking it's not somebody else judging you, not like God judging you. This reflection is mediated by some aspect of yourself. So
Yes.
you do something wrong, you know it was wrong. You know exactly how it was wrong. You know, not at your surface consciousness, but deep inside, you know that what you did was messed up. And so you start manifesting differently. And you start manifesting things that seem like, you know, karmic repayment. But it's all coming from you. You are the strictest judge of yourself at a deep level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that some of the stuff you talked about too was in the next Hamid Bey book that we didn't get to together.
Is that number 4?
No, we're reading the ones for the class. I just it went out of my head. I don't remember.
That's okay.
I think that it seems like supposedly we're supposed to come to the end of karma, and the end of karma would be, I guess, not blaming yourself so much, because if we're hard on ourselves, that shows up. I mean, it shows up in our world. It's just our mind frame, and it's, you know, why is this always happening to me? Because that's how you feel about yourself. You got to forgive yourself and move on.
Forgiving yourself is the huge thing. Forgiving others, forgiving yourself. That's the way I see it too.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we're going to be more in a place of self-love, knowing and honoring who we really are, and coming from that point. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Well, the goal is not to have any buttons pushed. Don't let anything in the outside world push your buttons. Working on it with all the stuff going on in the world, but to remain neutral. That when you can have that same outlook, and even things that happened in the past, forgive yourself for whatever your reaction was to it. And that person, that's the goal.
Yeah, your reaction to it. That's, I think that's key.
I was also thinking that when I'm not reacting, when I'm being focused on spiritual ideas, it occurs to me that all this may be happening for all of us to grow spiritually if you don't test anything, how do you know how strong you are, how resilient you are? You have to have hard things sometimes come to you to test your ability to withstand. And it has occurred to me, like when I'm not reacting, this is good. You're testing your ability to put into practice all these things I'm learning from Hamid Bey and all these spiritual ideas, being neutral, being just seeing the neutrality of God, and everything is good and everything has a purpose, and it's not about me. It's not about yourself. It's about the compassion is seeing the angry face with the AKG who wants to shoot our governor, and to be able to say, boy, I feel compassion for that person because they must be really hurting, I mean,
I don't think it means that we just sit back and do nothing. When we're seeing stuff like that in the world, it's good to be, like you said, Linda, not have that reaction and have compassion for that person. And at the same time, I just saw a video of Mother Teresa going into, was it Beirut, to get these disabled children out who had been abandoned. They were in a hospital or whatever, and everything around them was destroyed, and they had been abandoned. She went and got something like 19 of them out of there. And it was like, and they said, no, don't go. And she said that something like Jesus will have a ceasefire tomorrow. And there was a ceasefire, and she went in and got the kids out. And so, that is love in action. And I heard somebody say social justice is love in action. So and we cannot refrain from our reactive responses within ourselves to it. It doesn't mean that we just sit back.
Well, I agree, but I also have come to the point where, is this my task to do?
Yeah.
What is my task here? Am I supposed to be out there doing something? Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe my task is to sit here and learn to not overreact because I have other tasks I'm supposed to do. Yeah. So I think that's part of divine guidance too, is what is my task here? Am I supposed to do something, or am I supposed to do what I'm supposed to be doing? My track,
Well, I felt like I wanted to go to the border and help those kids in cages, and I thought I'd go down there and I'd get arrested because, and so then I found some ways to, you can write your congressman, you can donate money to organizations who are helping, there's a lot of things you can do from your living room, including sending light. But there are a lot of things that are active in the world that you can do if you aren't supposed to be somebody who's down there in the middle of it.
Right. And what you're talking about here also goes back to what Tara was reading earlier about always being on the move, always being in action, and to always be expressing the divine in your sphere of influence within your world. And then not just sit back and let everything happen, but to be an active part of what's going to be happening. Yeah, to be the solution. Or to be a creative influence, whether it's a solution or something else.
Yeah.
As you were talking about blame, for some reason, that to me is a trigger word. If somebody says, don't blame me, it immediately fires me up, and I think there should not be any blame. Nobody is to blame. The situation has occurred. It just needs fixing. Let's move on with it and forget about who cares who caused it. It doesn't really matter who caused it. It's just we need to do something now. Let's figure out, put our heads together and take care of it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know why it triggers me so. When somebody says the word blame, I suddenly, it's like, oh, I really react. And it's like, I worked at a place where the boss always would say, if somebody said, well, who caused that? He'd say, it doesn't really matter. We just have a problem that we need to get fixed. And then he'd say, let's work on it. And he'd say, who, let's
Yeah,
get
they
the right
always have
person to do
side
this.
blame.
I'd like to ask a question.
And that was a really good place to work. I mean, there was a harmony, a really good working, a cooperation amongst people. There wasn't any competition, which you see in some places where one person wants to stand out above all the others. Here, everybody just worked as a community, a group, and a lot got done.
Some fires just happen, but some really are caused by arsonists.
Mm-hmm. We're all living in this huge pandemic. It's really mind-boggling. It's so sad. It's just, and like Alan, you said, well, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not. But for a lot of families that have lost people, it's personally not a good experience for them. But does anybody have some kind of an insight as to what could be the good from this? Our lives are just turned upside down.
I think Linda Masad hit on it.
Say that again, Jan?
I think Linda Masad hit on it in that it is causing us all to go more within. I do think that and like Alan said, it is clearing the ground for planting new seeds. There are more and more light workers that are out there planting seeds. And
I know that, but it just is getting worse.
Well,
the energies on the planet, the frequencies are raising. They have been for years, and it's getting uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think that's part of the reaction to that, is part of what's going on. And it also affords us more time to sit in that creative space. We're creating a new norm. And light workers are putting out for the cooperation and compassion and people-guided governments, and and we can create that from that space of quiet and going within.
Yeah, I think it takes us out of our complacency. For a number of years, I was so busy doing this and doing that and doing the other thing that I wasn't really paying as close attention to my spiritual growth as I had at one time. It's like I took a time off. And boy, when this happened, it's like, why did you take a time off? This is something that's really important. This is number one right now, is spiritual growth. And so I think it's that this happened to shake people like me up.
We have just had a new shift in the planet. It's November 11th of 2020, and of course I'm a numerologist, so it's easy for me to figure out. 4 ones are a new beginning in the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. It's all beginning right now. Now, it's interesting that 2020 is the key of why it had to happen now. And if you add 20 and 20, it's 40. And you know what 40 means? The mind, the higher mind and the lower mind, to change what's happened here. So what I recommend you doing, to have a prayer of what you want to have happen. And I pray, COVID-19, now it's time to change and get rid of COVID-19. That's a seed. My mind did it. It planted it. And I suggest each of you decide, what do you want for the next year? 11-11, 4 new beginnings. So build on that. We are the creators. We're the creators for all people of all nations. We're universalists. We're here for all people. So let's become a universalist. And all the children are symbolically our children. All people on earth are our brothers and sisters. And we are in this to change. But when springtime comes, like 11-11, then it's time to plant the seeds, and COVID-19 disappears. That's intention, planetary intention. started by the conscious mind and jumping into the subconscious and the superconscious. Yes, Jim, Nancy and I are using your book, one of the greatest books I've ever read. And it's all about the conscious mind, taps into the superconscious and the subconscious on the inner dimensions. Who are the farmers? We are. We've come to change it to the positivity and love and light. What we have to do is to pray with intent, with love for all people. And Hamid Bey would say, and I heard him say it many times when he got through speaking, I believe, I believe, I believe. What a man. Fantastic. But he always said that, and it just rings true. When we believe it, it will be manifested. If it's positive, it will be better for all people of all nations. That's what we came to do. So I wanted to thank Jim Campbell for that book that he gave us. What a fantastic book. And Nancy and I do it every day. We read out the book every day. So
To each other. I read some, he reads some.
Boy, that's one of the greatest books I've ever read. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
And it talks a lot about healing. So I believe what I read. I guess I can heal. Try to heal this mess.
Energy goes where the mind flows. Is it no energy flows where the mind goes.
Absolutely.
So whatever you put in your mind, that will occur. That can
accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, no matter the middle in between. It works.
The visualization that I learned was that there is this energy that's constantly flowing through us, from the divine through us out into the world. And whatever thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that we have within that mind is how that light is being colored. It's like a filter on a light bulb. It could be red, it could be blue, it could be green, it could be any color you want. But if you have a filter of positivity, then that energy of the divine is going through that filter, and that's what it goes out to create.
But if you say something and subconsciously you're thinking, but I don't really think it's going to happen, I don't really think it's going to happen is the part of the energy that gets picked up. So
right.
When you wonder, why didn't that occur? Because I said I believed it was going to happen. It isn't the words, it's the belief.
Right. You can believe something up here, or you can believe something in the heart. And it's the beliefs that you have in the heart that really matter.
I think it's interesting how everybody, in the beginning of this year, was all these memes were coming out. Oh, 2020 vision, 2020 vision. This is 2020. And now it's like the same people. It's like, oh, this year sucks. Can't wait till it's over. And I'm in my mind, I'm going, well, what do you think 2020 meant? What did you think having clear vision meant? Did you mean you were just going to sit around and do nothing? Or did you really realize that it meant that you would have to be shaken up so you had a different point of view? So,
and don't forget what 20 means symbolically. 2 is a feminine heart to the 10th power. So we got the feminine love involved in this. It will, like Hamid Bey, I believe, I believe, I believe.
Well, I can remember when they said that we would not be able to keep anything hidden or in secret. It's all going to be out there for everyone to witness. And boy, isn't that what's happened with this year?
Very true. And it's amazing how much we embedded in our subconscious minds. I've been realizing that more and more as I take a look into Jim's book, which I was also gifted, and still delving into that further. So again, thank you for that. And it's
what book are you talking
about? What's that?
What book are you talking about? I don't think I know about this. Did you write a book, Jim?
No, it's the power of your subconscious mind.
I was just sharing a book with partners.
That's one of Alan's guys.
What?
Dr. Joseph Murphy?
This whole shelf right here is Joseph Murphy. I've got at least a dozen of his books.
Okay.
It's the book of subconscious mind. You know, that's really how we create everything. We just have to become aware that that's what we're doing and how to go about doing it. And the book is, although it's written in small print, it's kind of tough in the reading, but it gives you good practical examples to, things that you can relate to. And he covers just about everything that you can talk about, really. So I highly recommend it for the board, and gave each one of the board members a copy of the Power of the Subconscious Mind.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I love reading his materials, is because he does offer so many different examples of, okay, I knew this person, this is the problem they had, this is the prayer that I gave them, this is what they did with it, and this is how it ended up. And so there's so many wonderful examples.
I would highly recommend anybody take any of his material and read it and
apply it.
Yeah, apply it. It works.
Catherine Ponder is another author that writes in a similar line, and her books are also good.
What's her name?
Catherine Ponder. Let me see.
She's one of the Unity authors.
Yep, that's the other side of the shelf over here. Dynamic Laws of Prayer is one of her main books.
Oh.
The first one she wrote, Dynamic Laws of Prosperity.
Prosperity, yeah.
So
yeah,
she's known for it.
And then she's got a whole series of books. So, yep. Both are really great authors.
You did a very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. It's great.
Yeah, we sparked off a really nice conversation here tonight.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for that.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Mrs. Tutt's son has done good. Way to go, Judy.